The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high-quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, see everything we do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes with Plein Air and Fine Art Connoisseur magazine. I don't know about you, but I love flowers, and I love to have the house filled with flowers. And sometimes we want those flowers around us in the wintertime, right? It's not always as easy. That's why floral paintings are so beautiful and so wonderful to have around. One of the great floral painters of our generation is Kathy Anderson. She's going to teach you how she brings the garden indoors.
Hi, I'm Kathy Anderson, and today I'd like to welcome you into my indoor garden, which I am going to turn into a beautiful painting. And I'm going to talk today about going to the nursery and why I chose the flowers that I chose, and how I set them up, and why I set them up in a certain way and chose to place things where they are, which, by the way, took me a very long time, probably about 45 minutes. And I'm also going to talk about, of course, my palette and all the colors that I use, my paints. I'm going to talk about my panel, and we're just going to have so much fun, and I hope I'm going to inspire you to want to do a painting like this, which is, I'm so excited about starting this painting because I took the time to really make it the best that I could. So let's get started. Okay, I'd like to talk now about why I made the choices and picked out these particular flowers while I was at the nursery yesterday. I love the yellow marigolds. It's one of my favorites, and the dahlias, and I decided I was going to do a palette of yellows and corals and mahoganies. And when I got to the nursery, then the next thing I started thinking about was different sizes and shapes of flowers. The dahlias are bigger, the marigolds are small, and then I decided those tall, I believe they're coreopsis, I picked those for the height. So these are all decisions that I made at the nursery. I wouldn't have bought all yellow flowers. I like to have a little punch of something different in there, which is why I went and got the little tiny white flowers, and so that I could have these little dots of white all over the painting. So once I made the decision, I got the flowers that I wanted, different shapes, different heights. I took one of those ferns in the back because I knew I wanted to have this backdrop. And I'm really creating a garden right here on this still life stand. That's what I want to do right now. Now you know how I picked out, and I go to the nursery and I can pick out all different things, but I'm always thinking of a color harmony when I get together, when I pick all the different flowers together. I think of a color harmony, and then I also think of different shapes, different heights, different sizes. So that's how I pick out when I'm going to do a painting. Unless it's in my own garden, of course, and actually I plant things just for that reason. I plant them with the painting in mind. So I want to talk about the design of this setup. It took me a long time to do this, as I said before. It took me about 45 minutes to set this up. It sometimes takes me even longer. But I started deciding that I kind of thought about the fact that I wanted a clump of yellow here. People always ask me in my workshops whether I have how do I decide what my focal point is, and how do I place the focal point, but I have to say, to tell you the truth, I don't really think about a focal point when I start a painting. What's much more important to me is the dance of the painting, the movement around the painting. I want you to constantly be going all over and having every single part of the painting be interesting and very beautiful. So, and the movement, I will talk much more about this later, but the movement is created by the edges that I see and values, which is of course the most important part in the design. So I look at this painting and first of all, I have to wait until I'm like so excited that I'm dying to paint it. And that's kind of where I am right now. So I'm looking and I see this nice dark pattern underneath here. There's a nice dark shape going on. I'm just going to step over here. I have to keep stepping back and forth because I'm sort of at an angle so that you all can see it, and then I have to remember where my patterns are. So there's this beautiful dark pattern going all the way around here. Now you look at this and you say, how the heck is she going to paint these leaves, all this massive stuff? And I'm actually not sure. We'll always hope for the best. Anyway, the little white flowers, they're just sort of interspersed. Am I going to paint all of this? No, not a chance, of course. I'm going to pick out what's important. But mostly what's important to me is the movement. This beautiful trail, this is why I wanted the tall yellow flowers, this beautiful trail of yellow, all the way down, dancing all the way down, with this beautiful dark in between. And just most of this green is just going to be a middle tone value to start with. So this will all become clearer when you actually see me paint it. But for right now, as I said, I took quite a while to set this up, so I'm pretty happy with the way it looks right now. And I do have to say that when you set up this, I guess you'd call this a still life, but I call it an indoor garden. But when I set something up like this, no matter how much time I take to set it up, once I start painting, if something's not quite right, first of all, I wouldn't dare try to change something there, because if I do, the entire thing will probably collapse, and then I'll just have to run out of the room and stop painting. Or I can just move it here. Why take the time to move it there? So, but that's a decision I can't really make until I actually have my design of my values in, and I see, oh, well, like even right now I'm looking at this, as much time as I took to do this, I see a line coming down this way that's probably not very pretty once I start the painting. So I could take the time to go back and move it, but like I said, I'm too scared that the whole thing will collapse. So that's something that I'll deal with later and probably just move it over in my painting a little bit. So I think I'm almost ready to start the block-in. Before I start the block-in, I was going to talk a little bit about my equipment, the paints I use, the brushes I use, and the panel that I use. The most important part of your equipment is your surface. When I teach workshops, I always tell everybody to get a good oil-primed linen canvas. And a good product, actually, that's not too expensive is the Deluxe New Centurion canvas pads. They come in about, I think, 10 sheets to a pad, which is actually a very good product. Otherwise, on my website, I have how to make your own panels if you have access to certain tools. It's very labor intense when you read the instructions, but it's so inexpensive to make it that way, and you can make so many at once that's what this is. It's a special plywood, and the process is on my website. This is my favorite palette, Open Box M. I take this with me wherever I go. I have a smaller one when I go someplace where I'm going to be hiking with a backpack. It fits in my backpack. And a good heavy-duty tripod, which I got from B&H in New York. And most of my paints are, well, I use a lot of colors, a lot more colors than most people do. And I keep growing more, which is why there's some on the end here. But I'll go over this palette so that you can see this basic, but you don't really need all these colors. It's what I have here now, so I'll go over it. This is Viridian, Rembrandt, Cobalt Blue Light, Rembrandt, Ultramarine Deep, Rembrandt, Transparent Oxide Red, Rembrandt, Terra Rosa, Winsor Newton, Alizarin Permanent, Winsor Newton, Lefranc Titanium White. This is cadmium. I have two oranges. You don't really need two oranges, but this is cadmium orange Michael Harding, and this is cadmium orange Rembrandt. Cad Red, Winsor Newton. Cad Scarlett, Winsor Newton. Cad Yellow Deep, Rembrandt. Cad Yellow Pale, Winsor Newton. Lemon Yellow, Michael Harding. Yellow Ochre Pale, Winsor Newton. Transparent Gold Ochre, Winsor Newton. Transparent Oxide Brown, Rembrandt. This is Phthalo Green Yellow, Rembrandt. I very rarely use this, but I always have it on the palette in case I want something a little bit darker. Permanent Rose, Winsor Newton. Magenta, Winsor Newton. And Stil de Grain Yellow, Rembrandt. It's kind of like Indian yellow, but it's very transparent. I also don't use that a lot. But it just makes me happy to have all the colors out on the palette, so I put them out. So these are three colors that I play with sometimes, and I just like to have them. Mostly these are when I do florals, or what I kind of add on. This is Gamblin's Transparent Orange, and this is Sennelier Magenta, which is a little different. I use it in a certain kind of pansy. I don't know why I put it out there. It also makes a very pretty mix, these two together. And this is Rembrandt's Transparent Greenish Yellow, which is another color that I've started to like. So after, like I said before, the panel, your surface is very, very important. The next absolute most important thing is the brushes. And of course, these are my rosemary brushes. I have, this is probably 1/5 of what I have because they're a compulsive addiction that once you start buying them. And I have all different kinds. I have this synthetic, I have the bristles, I have these are evergreens, I have some sables. I have many different kinds of brushes. And when students ask me, how do you know what brush to use, which is a great question, but basically the answer to that is when you pick up a brush and you start using it and you're not able to do what you're doing with what you want to do, then you realize, oh, this isn't the right brush for this. For example, this is, by the way, this is, as I said on my website about making the panels, but basically the finish is Winsor Newton Oil Primer, which comes in a quart, and I put on 2 coats and sand in between. It's a very slick surface, which I like a lot, but I can't, once I put a wash on, when you see how I start my process, I can't paint on top of that with a bristle brush when it's wet, because I'll just pick everything up. Mostly that's when I know, oh, I have to use my soft brushes. I have to use the Mongoose blends, or the Mongoose, if I still have some of those, or these beautiful Eclipse, I believe these are Eclipse. I love these. These are very soft, but they keep a really nice, sharp edge. So, like I said, basically, for example, here's this dagger brush. What do I use this for? I use it for like painting branches on trees. I use it for stems. It makes a really razor sharp edge. And, I love the angle brushes. Right now, they're my favorites. And that's the other thing, too. When you, especially if you know a lot of artists and you take a lot of workshops, people will say, oh my God, this is my favorite color in the world. I can't do without this color. And then 6 months later, it's not even on the palette because it's not your favorite color anymore. So same with the brushes. Like I go through, these are my favorite right now. And then, oh my God, now these are my favorite brushes. So basically, what am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, don't be married to anything. If you want to try something new and you like it better, then do it. Okay, so now I'm very excited about starting this painting, but what I was going to say before about remember when I said that there was this line of the marigolds and I noticed that that was not a good design element? One of the things I tell everybody in my workshop that I'm happy about myself in my gaining knowledge to hopefully to become a better painter, is that we all make mistakes with setting things up and putting something right on top of the other one, or making a line or whatever. And I still do that, not all the time, but I do it. But the thing that I'm really happy about is that when I do it, I practically always catch it before it gets too far in the painting. In fact, I always catch it when it's in the painting. So this time I caught it on the setup, and like I said, I'm not going to change it there. But I'm always on the lookout when I'm starting. When you see when I start this block in, I'm going to be looking for how can I get this dance to go all the way through without using every single thing that's in this setup. The beautiful, long, tall flowers at the top, the little dances of white all over. There's a beautiful dark shape right along here that I'm just really getting me very excited. And a lot of times it's a really good idea to just quietly stop and just really stare at it and think and look at it. I'm seeing, beautiful shadows cast there's some in the front. And the ones that are in the back here have this beautiful shadow cast, which is part of my value pattern going down this way. And then also another thing that I really love is archways. I see a beautiful arch of that dark going over this way. And actually now when I look at the little tiny white flowers, they're not really where I want them to be. What I may wind up doing, these are little tricks, by the way, that I do, especially when I'm painting out in the garden. Some of the tools that I take with me everywhere are flower tubes that you can buy them on the internet, like a whole bag of the flower tubes that you get usually with roses, and bungee cords. When I paint outside, if I had like a huge rose bush, for example, and I wanted to alter where the rose, especially from somebody else's garden, and I don't want to go and just subtly clip off to rearrange their rose bush, I take bungee cords and move things with the bungee cords. I did a very big painting on my website, actually, of a huge quince hedge. They're little orange flowers on this big, beautiful hedge. And I brought in bouquets of daffodils that I cut and tulips that I cut, and I put them in the little flower tubes and stuck them in the ground underneath the quince bush. Then I bought like 6 packs of pansies like this, little 6 packs, and you just squeeze them and pull the flowers out, and I stuck the flowers all around underneath the hedge of quince. And I basically created the same thing outside. I used what was there, but it wasn't quite enough for me. And another time I painted, somebody had an entire wall of blue morning glories, and I was so excited to paint it. They were so beautiful. But something told me that I knew it needed something more to make a gorgeous painting. And I brought in a bunch of white geraniums and put the white geraniums underneath, and I think I also had a little tiny flowers. I might have put a couple of those underneath. So those are just things to think about when you're outside as far as setting up a garden. Nothing's perfect out there. You're never going to find the perfect composition. You have to be willing to change things and leave things out and bring things in and add them. It's different than the landscape where you go out and you're not going to be moving trees and shrubs, hopefully. But with flowers, there's so much you can do to make hopefully your perfect painting. So I'm so excited to start this painting. I'm going to start with a beautiful wash. And when I start, the wash is the thing that harmonizes your painting. So in all my workshops, which are all floral workshops, I always start with a wash of some kind of brown and green, like Viridian and transparent oxide red, or Viridian and transparent oxide brown, or something brown and green. And I do that because that's what I see there. It's the warm earth tones that are behind the flowers. So that's why I start with those all the time. But people think that that's the only wash that I start with. It certainly isn't. If I'm setting up a different kind of a still life, for example, right now I'm working on a painting of, oh my God, it's so beautiful. It's white roses and very pale pink roses on a pale gray background in a big white bowl. It's very challenging. impossible, but maybe I'll figure it out. But I think the background wash I used was Viridian and Cad Red, which made a very soft gray. And it's a very beautiful wash behind these white flowers, but it's a challenge to get a nice value contrast with it. But for these kinds of paintings, I always start pretty much with a brown and green of some sort, keeping it very warm, and you'll see how I get to the point where I start pulling things out. Okay, let's get started, except I see one more little thing that I just realized I have to do. I have another yellow flower. There's something about this little clump, a little hole in the middle here that's kind of bothering me. And I'm going to just try very carefully. And I'll tell you the reason I'm doing this is because I really love this flower right here. I just like it because it's looking up. By the way, another thing maybe I didn't mention, I just want to get a little bit more into what I look for, is that all the flowers aren't facing in the same direction. I love that leaves are covering some of them. I love that some of them are straight up like this. A couple of them are facing me. And then I pick out ones that I especially love. But that little hole right there of green, I don't like it when I see flower, 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 flower separated like a kind of a florist bouquet separated. So I just wanted to close up. I wanted to close up that clump just a little more, and actually that's making me much happier. And I sort of have broken that line that I talked about before. So these are all the things, whatever I can fix there helps me. But as I said, it doesn't mean I'm married to it completely, that I can't change. So I'm avoiding painting because I don't want you to know that I actually don't know how to paint. No, that's just kidding, just a joke. Anyway, here we go. Oh, I don't have any paper towels. This time I'm really going to start. But first, I forgot to say, very important that you protect your skin. And I use this Skin Safer. I get it from Dick Blick, but online. It's a very good cream, very good protective cream. Every time I wash my hands, I have to reapply it. But I tell myself it's doing a good job because when I have paint all over my hands and I wash my hands, all the paint comes off. So I'm hoping that it's a good enough product that it's not seeping into my skin. But that's very important to protect yourself because these aren't the safest things to work with. The other thing I also neglected to do, I always have 4 piles of semi-mixed paint on my palette. Always, no matter what I'm painting, because I wind up dipping into them. The pile on this side, I have Viridian, 2 blobs of Viridian, and one I have mixed with Cad Yellow Pale, and as you can see, I hardly have it mixed. The other I have mixed with Cad Yellow Deep. This one's a little warmer, tends towards sort of a brownier green. This is more of a lime green kind of color. The other 2 piles I put on my palette, one is Cobalt Blue with a tiny bit, very tiny, of Permanent Rose, and the other is Ultramarine Deep with just a dot of alizarin, a little bit. These 2 piles I put white into. There's no white in these piles at all. I have very few rules when I paint, but when I put my wash on, I never have white in the wash. That's about one of my few rules. So these 2 piles, they're just on the side. I use them to mix, a lot of the times, grays. I put all kinds of different things in there to make beautiful grays. And you'll see the different combinations as I go along. And actually, this is a good segue to talk about doing the color charts. I do color charts out of Richard Schmidt's book, Alla Prima, which is invaluable. It changed my life as far as mixing colors and will give you such an incredible understanding on what makes what. I still pull the color charts up when when I'm not sure what I want, I'll actually pull the color charts up, especially for backdrops and backgrounds and paintings. I'll pull them up and oh yeah, so your eye will just tell you, yeah, that's it, that's it. Okay, now I'm really going to start. Okay, so I'm taking a pile of transparent oxide red and some Viridian. This is my standard, most favorite wash when I'm going to paint a scene like this. Now, when I have students in class and I start them with a wash like that, some of the common mistakes are using too much transparent oxide red, which makes the wash very orangey and it's not that pretty a color, or using too much Viridian, and that makes it more a little cooler and sometimes too much chroma of the green that's also not such a pretty color. So for me, I want to get that exact balance, and I want to be nice and big brush strokes, a nice big brush. This is a rosemary ivory long flat. And I'm just going to put it all over the canvas. It's so much fun. Another common mistake with students putting this wash on is little colors, little strokes like this, and missing spots and just having, white. You have to think of this. This is going to harmonize my painting. A lot of the places in the painting that I could just leave the wash, it's a bonus for me. It's going to be in the background. By the way, there's a step that I didn't do here that I sometimes do, and I'll do it in the wash instead. See the transparent oxide red? If it gets too orangey, I don't like that so much. So then I just put some more green in it. I have lots of terp. That's my clean terp, by the way, my clean Gamsol, and this is my the one where I clean my brushes in, because this is the one that I mostly are going to dip my finger into. See how beautiful that color is? I'm already excited. When I see this color, I never get tired of it. Never. See that? Instantly tired of that one. I got way too much paint on the brush. No big deal. I'll go over it with more green. Just having fun. It's just like being a little kid with finger paints almost. I could do this with my fingers, but I won't. But see, it's all different colors. Then I'll take a nice soft Viva paper towel. Viva is now making another paper towel that's like Bounty, and it's not such a great surface. It's like a cloth almost. So I kind of go over the whole thing like this, and see how beautifully, it's not a solid color. It's like I see a little bit of this green. I get so excited from this part. It's like I could just stop right now and sit down and have a cigarette. I don't smoke, however, but it's like that's what you kind of might want to do. Look how beautiful that is. Now, if anything shows through here, you're already like, oh God, this is so beautiful. I'm done. No, I'm not really done. But this is so beautiful. It just gets me so excited. Okay, I have two things that sometimes I start just like this with the wash, but other times, and I want to show you because I don't want to take the wash off because I'm so excited about it. But this is another way I sometimes start, especially with something as complicated as this. But I pretty much have this in my head. Sometimes I'll just take my canvas that has nothing on it, and I'll just take some neutral color like yellow ochre. And what I'm going to do is I just want to get the design in my head. So basically I'll go, okay, those dahlias over here, they'll probably be here. Maybe the one on the end there will be like this. And then this dahlia will be here. And then all the way up here with this pretty little yellow flower. And they're going to dance down this way. And no drawing, if you notice, at all. And down this way, and there's going to be this dark in here. And then here there's going to be this clump of marigolds. And then they're going to dance down this way. and maybe end like this. And this one will come around like this. Doing this is enough, it's enough for me to see my design. So when I start like this, I especially do this if I have objects, if I'm doing a still life with objects, or as I said, I probably should have done it with this complicated setup, but I didn't because I have it so much in my head by now this morning. So as you can see, there's really nothing going on here except some brush strokes, but I can tell here that this is going to make a very nice design. You know, am I going to start putting little white flowers in? And no, of course not. This is just a rough design. And then when I start like this and I do this, I actually wipe it off. I don't even bother leaving it there. I don't need to leave it there for any reason. So I just wipe it right off because it just solidified it and put it in my head. Now, oh gosh. Oh, this is too hard. Well, okay. Let's see. So I'm going to say the most exciting part to me is there's a very dark value underneath this dahlia here. And then there's another one over here that goes down, and it's the beautiful shape of a dark value. And then all this dark down here. So I see these beautiful dark patterns, and believe it or not, that's more exciting to me than almost anything, because I know how it's going to make everything else just jump out. As I start getting into this further, I'm going to see that I'm going to have to move. Like there's the dahlia up on the top left. I kind of can't see. Half of it's in a pretty deep shadow. So I think I'd like it to face me a little more, so I'll probably move it when I get there. But for now, I'm going to start by placing my design. And I'm going to start with this dahlia right here. So and the thing with nature and the way to make your paintings look so natural, as if they really are falling in the garden, is to have everything be like sort of like nice little different angles, and you know, as I was describing before, some looking straight up, some looking at you, this direction, that direction. So that dahlia, it's very subtle, but it's at a little bit of a line. And I'm thinking to myself, if I want to watch out, because I want room for this one, the other dahlia that's a little lower. So if that one is here, and of course my canvas is not as tall as that. So that's another compensation that I'll be doing as I go along. So for the start, I'm not going to block this down. I just want to show you, though, this surface. This is probably not a good thing to do, to dip right into the turp, but I do it anyway. I can get right down to the white canvas, right? So that's what I'm going to wind up doing. But I'm not going to start off that way because I want to see my design first. So if this dahlia is like this, and when I rub out, I'm not just making a ball. I'm thinking about the angle and the design of what I'm rubbing out. The biggest dahlia, the one on the back here, which is almost looking straight up, is about here. I'm very fortunate to be one of the very earliest Putney painters in painting with Richard Schmidt and Nancy Guzik for the past 17 years, actually. And so I'll be quoting Richard and Nancy, and I owe so much to them throughout this DVD. And one of the things that Richard says is get one thing correct and then measure everything off of that. So I'm saying that this dahlia is going to be about this big. So if that's true, I don't always do this with something like this, but it's helpful. The other dahlia, the one that's facing this way, I look at it and it's a little bit bigger than this, than half of this. And it's kind of at an angle, so I go like that, and then I also go at I'm laying my brush at the angle through the centers of the two of them, the center of this one and the center of the other one. And I see that that's how far down it is. So it would be nice to have it that far down. And right away I see that I could move this over a little. So see how freeing this is. No drawing, so I have nothing invested in this. I'm going to move it over a little bit because I like that it's down at an angle like this. But then I think to myself, let's see, if I put that here, all right, I'm going to see how it works out. I'm putting it a little bit higher than it is there. Like I said, you don't have to have it exactly like that. And then there's, let's see. I like what's going on in between them. So once again, if this is going to be sort of here, and this is here, then the one in between, I want it to stick out a little bit so that it's not lined up. I have to be careful that it's not lined up. And over here, there's one looking backwards, but I don't have to really put that in yet, but it is in my head. So now I want to think about that clump of yellow marigolds, because those have to be kind of in the right place. That big, beautiful dark shape is here, and it comes under here. So this clump, I look and I see the top one of the clump is kind of down here. So I'll put, if that one's here, and then this whole mass, actually I'm going to raise it up a little bit. And then the one that's standing up straight here, that's going to be an important one. That could be here. This is very exciting, this painting. I'm getting excited. I can't, never mind. Huh? Let's see. This one's here. And then I see there's another one that's on an angle. So I'll wipe it out a little bit like that. And then there's this one, which kind of comes up here. That's part of this clump. And then I think, oh, I think this clump could be moved over a little more. No problem. Just move it over. If I don't have enough of a value behind here, I can't tell what's going on. Then I can't really see what the design is going to look like. So this one I can see is the sideways one here. And then there's, with the light hitting it, there's a beautiful light one right here. Now I have to stand on a little bit of an angle in order to be filmed, but I just want to come over here and make sure that I'm getting into the right angle here. I know I see all this space on the top here. I may have done the whole thing too low, but we'll see if I can, what it looks like when I get the other flowers in there. So these, maybe a couple down here, and they're just, these might wind up being just kind of like color notes. I love things going very close to or off the canvas. I just love that. There's, it's funny when I say I love that. One of the things that when I have a workshop, I like to write to the students, and I ask students to go through art books and see what the paintings are that they really, really love, and try to figure out what they love about those paintings, what attracts them, because everybody is attracted to something different. If you can figure out, is it the edges, is it the values, is it the subject? Well, the subject matter, you can love figure paintings and see a lot of ones that you don't like. So it's why do you like that particular painting? There's a very large painting by Lawrence Altadima at the Clark Museum. It's a gigantic painting with lots of figures, and on the very bottom here, there's a figure that you almost don't notice at first that goes, she's right off the canvas. The whole painting isn't there. And that painting has stayed with me all the time, and I think that's why I love things going off the canvas, because of that. All right, so this whole area, maybe it's just going to be these little white flowers. I'm not going to rub them out for the most part, but the reason I left this area up here, once I get all of this down here, which is going to be so beautiful, this one marigold that has the light on it is going to be just beautiful. This one back here, and one over here. Then here, this is the beauty of these tall ones, and this is why I thought about these tall ones. There's going to be these little tiny, I'm not painting them exactly the way they are there. But I'm painting the flowers, but I'm not painting them in the exact places. I'm putting them where I think they need to go. Like what I love, see the two dead buds in the front? I just love those two dead buds. And then there's that tall one right there, right in the middle and the back. And I have to step back for a minute and just see where would that look good. Well, for one thing, this one's a little tall up here. If this one was here, I feel like this one might be right here. This is really very exciting. This is a little too big, I can see. Oops. So here's what I'm looking for. I want a nice movement going all through it, and I definitely think I have that. You're going to see this much better when I get to the next stage. I have some nice areas of negative space that are just resting space. And this is what I'm talking about the wash. This is so beautiful here. I love these just brush. It's just really beautiful brush strokes and some, I may go over some of this. Sometimes I have my wash in and I go over almost all of it. So then you might think, well, what was the point? And I actually asked myself the same thing. What was the point? But no, some of it, you'll always see some of it, and it's still, to me, it's unifying the painting. I think this design looks pretty good. There's a little bit of yellow right here. Yeah, this clump right here. So really, it's the shape of this clump that's, it's not so much the flowers individually that I'm wiping out. I'm wiping really out the shape of this whole clump. And I think I've got that okay. I think that's enough for this stage, actually. So the next thing I'm going to do, I want to get down right to the canvas where I want some beautiful, pure color. Because I don't want to be pulling up this background color. One thing Nancy, my dear friend Guzik, Richard's wife, she paints the most beautiful yellow flowers, and she said painting yellow on a white canvas is what makes it so clear. The color is so clear. So sometimes if something's in the shadow, I might leave some of it, but for the light parts, I just have to step up to my still life for a second. To my setup for a second, because I don't paint botanical flowers. That I'm actually going to do a little drawing lesson later too. But for me, if I can't tell what's going on up there, it's very hard for me to paint it. Sometimes I'll go up to somebody in a workshop and I'll say I don't understand what this is. Like where is this? What's the direction? I can't understand this flower. And then they'll show me the flower in life, and what do you know? That's the way it looks in life too. It's just, it's backwards or at a weird angle or something like that. And I said, well, if it's complicated in life, you're not going to make it read on your canvas. So pick a different flower or move it or do something. So that dahlia, there's a whole section of it. I can't tell if it's the whole flower or if there's another one behind it. So I'm going to step up just to see what's going on very carefully. And yes, in fact, there's another flower coming off the side of it. So I didn't think it was quite that big. It looked a little funny to me. So it goes up like this. And you see how I'm wiping out in the direction that it goes, like down and up. Not every single detailed drawing. Whoops. Now this one's next. And this has got the light on this side. And remember I said it was a little smaller, just because now that I stopped and figured that out, I'm going to go like this again. It's actually really much closer to the same size. A little bit bigger than that. This is not so important, and a lot of times after, when you measure and measure and measure for a long time, you'll find that your eye gets much better at just being accurate the first time, that you don't have to really do that. So I'm pulling to the canvas, I'm pulling out what's going to be the lightest places that I'm going to paint that have the nice pure color on it. So, okay, so I've got that. This one up here is not going to be totally, I know it's a yellow flower, but it's not going to be totally in the, I don't have to go, it's pretty much in shadow, so I don't have to go right down to the canvas except for the light side of it. It's really hard to talk and think and paint at the same time. So. This one has a little light over here. When I paint, when I do especially when I go up and paint with the Putney painters and I set something up and I don't finish it, which is most of the time up there, and it's very, very hard for me to come home and reset it up because I don't have the same light and the same situation in my studio. So for me, I found the solution for me is to take a really, really good photo. And mostly what I use the photo for is drawing, to check my drawings because I can't see the angle maybe that I started something. Or that's about it, drawing. I try to get the lights and the temperature and the values set from life before I can effectively go back and finish from a photo. But also, I can finish from a photo because I have so much painting experience from life. I can paint a whole garden painting from a photo because I've done it so much from life. I think everybody will tell you that paints, more experienced painters will say that it's the life painting that gives you your biggest education, that you can then effectively paint from a photo because you know what really happened there. Okay, now this one, so beautiful. See, most of what I'm doing actually looks like a flower, I think. Let me just give a little quick check on the size of the marigold. I'm comparing everything off that dahlia. It's about like that. Yeah, so it could be a little bit bigger. My eye gets fooled sometimes with size. After I get this part done, I'm going to, well, I'll tell you when I get there. Just we'll wait till I get there and see, because maybe I'll switch and do something else. No, I don't think so. So this is the one that I remember I said that a couple of them had some really good light on them. And the ones that are in the shadow, I'm not going to pull to the white, like I said, but I will pull out, because I don't want to pick this brown color up, browny green color. So I'll pull that. And there's a red one there. Now there's one in the front here that's so beautiful, and I just noticed that I've got it lined up right over here. So I'm just step back a little bit. Perfect, I see exactly where to move it, over here. So see how easy it is to make corrections like this. I don't care what's on my brush, just brushing it out into a value, because it's only the two colors that I use. So as long as it's a very pretty background color, I'm not going to worry about, is it exactly what I want for whenever, but that's not the important part. The important part is that I just have to get paint there so that I can see what I'm doing. So this one had a very nice piece of light right here. And I'm being conscious not to make it even with this. Like I said, I brought it over because it was right underneath. Those are all this is very hard. It's really hard. There's so much decision making and things to think about. It's hard. So in here, there's going to be, oh, there's a tiny bit of red sticking behind it. Oh, there's so many beautiful things in here. Oh my God. This is the one that I was really the most excited with, which is what I altered everything for. And guess what? It's not, it doesn't excite me anymore. The other ones are more exciting. Going to put, the drawing of it excites me a little bit, a lot. Don't do this with your relationships. I think I've changed my love now in the last 20 minutes, 3 times or 4 times. Not good. This is going to be dark in here. No problem, I'm not, no shape or anything there. That's not the shapes that I care about right now, because my next stage is where I'm going to get involved with that. Now, I'm down to here. I've got this much canvas left. I knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to get this whole thing in there. I don't need to get the whole thing in there. But now I'm going to stop for a second and make the decision, because I do like, for example, like I said, I like this mahogany colored marigold that's going off down here. There's a beautiful piece of orange over here. I can't put it in yet until I get a little further. There's a beautiful, another light one over here. I think this is where it's going to be. And that's this, it's close to the bottom, and it's sort of diagonal down from the dahlia. So let me get that. Yeah, that's a beauty down there. And then there's another one that's in the shadow here. Then I know I've got some white flowers here, and oh boy, this is going to be very nice. Let's see, a couple of little edges here, and that beautiful orange, and that might be enough. The mahogany one, that's catty corner to the dahlia. I'd have to think about that for a minute. It's pretty much almost the same value as the leaves. So it's not going to be that crucial as to where it goes. It's not going to alter my design too much. It's just going to be like another color. So it might go here. So I broke that line this way for sure. I have to be a little careful of what's going on here, but I don't think that's going to be a problem, because this is the same value, as I said, as the leaves. So it's kind of going to dip in and out. And that's all I'm thinking of. I'm thinking about beautiful shapes, edges that are going to bring you down. That's all I'm thinking about. And also what I'm having for dinner tonight. Okay. Okay, so next, clean the palette. There's one thing I learned from Richard and Nancy. It's to have a nice, clean palette. I'm going to move this over here to give me a little more room to work. If I have paint all over my palette, then I'm not choosing what color I want. For the most part, the palette's choosing it. So when I'm ready to start another section, this is not going to work here, I don't think. I want to start again with a clean palette. Okay, clean palette. actually, I probably didn't really have to clean it that good, but that's because I realized I'm going to go in next with my darks. And actually, I took a little bit of the transparent oxide brown this time with a little Viridian. And I'm actually running out of Viridian, and I'm going to get a little more in a second. Now, I'm not going to use that brush now, because now I've got paint all over the surface, and the ivory brush might pull up more than I want it to. So I'm going to take a nice soft brush now. This one, which is a Series 274, one of the Mongoose blends. And now I'm not going to put terp in, because on this surface, if you start putting terp on top of this, you pick up the background, and it's really hard to get back to what you want. So I might use a dot of terp, but not very much. So now what I want to do is get my really beautiful darks in there. I'll put a little transparent oxide red too. Remember I was saying, very common thing that a lot of new painters do is not having enough paint. You have to have enough paint on your palette. And when you have juicy, nice paint, it's all the difference in the world, really, as far as what you can manipulate. So you see what I'm doing? I have a very light touch and a soft brush. And really, it's the only way you can kind of go over this is with a light touch. And I'm not going over. I'm just, and this is pretty dry, this paint. I just want to get this dark. It's underneath this one, coming here. And it's really on top of this one. And at this moment, I can probably take advantage and put this edge right in here. Actually, I didn't do it quite. And then I see the next one is down here. Remember, this is the beautiful one that got me so excited. This is the one that I was really fickle with. I decided I didn't love it as much anymore. But it still has a nice dark hole under there, too. So this is all I'm doing. This is the flower pot over here, but I'm not looking at it as a pot. I'm just looking at it as another value. This is the other beautiful one up here. So I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing, I'm probably going to want this to go down like that, too. And then I see this goes up like this, and like that. I'm using the transparent oxide brown and Viridian for the most part. Look at that dark. Most people don't go dark and rich and warm enough. That's really the secret. Inside here, Richard always says that the innermost part is always warm. If you keep that warm and transparent, you can't go wrong. I think that's what he says. You simply can't go wrong. Now, if I put too much in, I'll just take it off. But by the way, if I wanted to take this off, the worst way to do it is to take a paper towel, and I'm not going to do that, and to take a paper towel and start rubbing at it. If I wanted to take that off, I'd start by blotting it, or scraping it with my palette knife, and blotting it, and carefully taking off as much as I want. As soon as you start rubbing it, you're blending it together and making just a big cloud of something that's not going to be so pretty anymore. So this is coming around like this. Now down here, thinking again, whatever I can leave is going to get left. I'm thinking of just sort of directionals. Kind of thinking my brush strokes, I'm not going you know. This V, I liked the way this V went up like this. A little bit more paint. Because I think about the fact also that I'm going to go over a lot of this. So no leaves at all, of course. Here's another one. Where is that one right here? This one has a dark coming in here. And this design, that's all I'm thinking of. I think this could be dark coming all the way up here. Now see this pretty area up here? This pretty area up here, I think I would like to just leave. I love that little bit of that pure Viridian coming in. That's okay. It's just a little bit, and it looks great. I'm feeling like maybe this whole side. I'm going to step back and look for a minute. Actually, I'm feeling like this is pretty powerful going up this way. Maybe a little more over here, because remember some of those little green, little white flowers rather. Sorry, I don't know the names of those. I'll look that up when I take a little break, and I'll tell you what they are. For those who are interested, I'm a very avid gardener, which is probably why I love to paint flowers so much. I've been gardening my whole adult life, and my mom was a gardener, and I guess that's where I got my love of gardening from. I remember a whole hedge of peonies at our house on Long Island when I was a child, and roses, a whole fence full of roses. Okay, I feel like that's a pretty nice, strong design. Maybe a couple of things going out. See, of course, there are things in my head that you're not seeing. Okay. I feel like it goes out. I feel like it wants to do that. So there'll probably be some of the white flowers in here. I might pull them out a little bit. But I'm not going to pull those white flowers out. If I get to one or two that I want to paint completely, then I might pull out, a section of pure white. But that's not important to me right now. I want to make sure I have this. This is this light one. There's a red one over here that I kind of like. If your paper towel starts getting too dirty, then you're not wiping out anymore. You're just putting more dirty paint on top of what you're doing. Just keep that in mind. So I've got this little guy in here that I liked. I'm back to liking him. Not as much as I love this one, but oh, I know what I'm missing here is the one that's the sort of sideways, because I do like that. Now, if I'm not going to get to everything, I better not pull it all out like this, because then if I want to paint a different shape there, I'll have a problem with the hard edges. When you stop painting for the evening, especially on this surface, depending on the climate, this could be almost dry tomorrow. So I'm not going to leave an edge where I don't want an edge. If I'm not sure whether it's going to be an edge, then I would soften it. If this is like this, then I think of there's one that's going backwards that I really love, but I don't like where it is there. So it might be like over here, but that's not important. I'll figure that out later. But that adds, to me, that really adds to it, that one up there. I really want you to see how confidently easy it is to move things around with this method. That's better. So that one's there. There's actually one, this is that one up here. There's actually a little bit of light over here, and that's a good edge to lead you around with. Just a little bit. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's what I call my blocking. No color, just value and design. Really important for me to keep my palette nice and clean, because now I'm going to lay in some of the color. Okay, I'm going to start actually with a little drawing first. So important. If your drawing isn't right, it doesn't matter how beautiful the paint is. It's just not going to, it's always going to be like, oh, there's something wrong there, there's something wrong there. And it's really, like I said, I'm not a botanical painter, but if you don't get, it's anatomy, just like anatomy of a person, really. And when I started painting, I'm going to take a different brush here. When I start to paint a flower, I almost always find the center. The center tells me everything, the center of the flower. And every flower, even though you don't see it, like a peony, sometimes you can't see the center because there's all those petals. But the center tells me the direction, and it tells me where the stem is coming from in the back, so that I can believably, even if I want to put it on real loose, it tells me the anatomy of what I'm painting. So I'm looking at that dahlia, the one on the end here. And the first thing, your eye fools you a lot sometimes, and like you might look at that and say, oh, that center is right in the center, but it's not. If I measure it, I'm measuring it from the bottom to the middle of the center. And if I take the middle of the center to the top, it's way high. So I'm going to take just a dot. Actually, I'm not going to put the center. I know where it is. It's up here. But first I want to put on a little bit of a wash. And I'm just going to take Cad Orange. And I'm going to put that right on it, on the whole thing. And then I'll take a little Cad Orange, and I'm going to mix it with this beautiful transparent yellow green. And paint the shadow side of it. We all say you're painting shapes of color. You're not really painting flowers. So now I have the dark side and the light side and the center, which I measured. I'm going to measure it in this direction too. From the edge to the center, and the center to the edge, it's way over. And that was fooling me too. I thought it was more in the center at the top, but it's not. Just took a little bit of the green. That's where my center is. And each center has this little lip around, you know, the bottom of it, the side, just like a cup. And that tells me the direction that it's going. So I think I have it. Hey, let me do that again. Sometimes I'm a little dyslexic. Oh my God, I just did that completely the opposite. Sorry. Okay. I'll be lining up to get a refund on their DVD, but good luck getting that. Here we go. See what a difference it made? It just changed the entire direction that the flower is going. It's high and it's over that way more. I know it's high. I don't have to redo that, but I know it's this way. And I'm going right over the brown, my background. In fact, I want to bring my background. I don't want to leave this halo around it, so I'm going to bring my background back up into it. Okay. Let's wipe a little bit more of this off. This one's a little bit coral. I'm going to take a little permanent rose. And color, by the way, is the least important element for me at the beginning. I can always change the color. It's the value and the temperature. And I'm going to just block this in with a kind of a drawing element. By the way, I also notice that I'm constantly wiping my brush, constantly cleaning my brush. When I want to go into a completely different color, like right now, I don't mind that I have a little bit of red residue on there. This is a really big center on this one. Actually, it should be a little lighter than that. When I want to go into a completely different color, then I'll really clean my brush in the Gamsol. But for the most part, I'm just going to wipe it, but really wipe it. A little lighter. I'm going back into the coral, so I'm going to clean my brush a little bit better. This one looks like it has a tiny bit of orange in it. So, whoops, a little more orange, I think. Oh, this reminds me of the Good Humor Man when I was a little girl and the creamsicles. That's something I always think of too when I paint. Especially snapdragons, they come in such beautiful colors. There's one snapdragon that looks just like the creamsicle with the vanilla ice cream in it. That's just, so I think of that ice cream cone when I paint that flower. I think of it when I see these colors. I mean, what could be more exciting in the world than that color and this color? Except for maybe this color and the next one that I paint. So see how I'm doing this very roughly, but now this center is way up high, way up high. Okay, that's enough for now with this kind of thing. Now up on the top here, I'm going to take some cad yellow pale, a little bit of white, a little bit more cad yellow pale. And I'm going to paint this edge because I can see it and it's so beautiful. Then I'm going to take another soft brush. This is one of the Eclipse brushes, a bright, a flat rather. And I'm going to take a nice dark value. Pretty much as dark as I think I'm going to go. And just get that right in there. And then it's even darker. I've just put a dot of transparent oxide red in there too. Okay, I might get lucky enough to be able to just leave this. I just put a dot of brown in there. And since I'm this far with this, I want to show that center in there. Okay, is that finished? Probably not, but it's close enough for what I want to do for right now. So coming all the way down, okay, so now I think I'm going to lay these in a little quicker just so that I can check out the value of them and see whether I'm in the right. I want to look at my design a little better, and this is a good way for me to do it. Now I want to get into the light. See those halos? Don't leave them. There's a beautiful edge here. I go up to the flower and then pull out, drag out a little bit. The bottom okay, now this one, see, like, oh, this little dance going down. And while I'm doing this, then I might discover that I'm making a little mistakes here and there, like spot, 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 and I might not like that. So, like, once I get this one in, I suddenly realize that I don't like where that one is. 1, 2, 3. Not good. Terrible. I don't know how I could have done such a thing. Take it out. But where do I want it? Let's see. So, by the way, when I squint at this, I see that this one really doesn't have so much light on it. This could be a little bit darker. Okay. So now I love this. Don't know where that one should be. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. You know what? I'm not going to put it in, though, until I get this one in, because that's kind of important. And now that I'm looking at this, could have been lower, but that's all right. I still have room for my dark here. I know what I might put. I might put another one up here. I might put it all the way up there. So see what I mean? I can change it, alter it completely. But I'm just going to go back and forth and change it as much as I want. Now this one, I think I'd like to try to really paint that the way I see it right from the beginning. It's so pretty. So I'll start with the center. Oh, I was going to do a drawing thing. I completely forgot. I said I was going to talk about drawing. I know. So I'm going to get the center in. I did start to talk about it. That's right. I started to tell you that how important the drawing was, but what I didn't tell you was, I talked about the measuring, but when you're painting something as complicated, for example, as this dahlia, once as I said, you saw that I got this in the wrong place, so I had to move it. And what I would do is, like, I would run my brush through the center and see where the peaks, the points of the dahlia are. Like, I can see that if I run my brush, when I run my brush from the bottom of the petal through the center, I can tell where there would be one up here, and that it makes it more balanced. You know what? I think it'll be easier to show you maybe on another one. I'll show you on this one here. Here's the center. Now the bottom petal is coming in at a slant. And what I want to look for is this petal right here. Where does the edge of it fall? And I see that up there it falls right on the edge of this. So if I don't get this pretty accurate, it's not going to be the shape of what's up there. And I love what's up there, so I want it to be that shape. This one is over here. And then there's a little one coming this way. And you notice I went that way with my brush, and I did that because if I went this way, I would be dragging that green-brown right into it. So this petal is up this way. And then there's some nice dark down in here. I'm just going to take some Cad Orange straight. I took the Michael Harding one. It's a little stronger. It's kind of a different color, and it's down in here. And maybe a little dot of transparent Oxide Red, too. And then maybe I'll drag the yellow back into it. One time I was painting whatever I think I was painting a daffodil, and Richard came up to me and he said, he just walked by and he said, put some Cad Red in the center there. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't see any Cad Red in the center. And he said, so what? He was right, so what? I put it there, and boy, did it work. You don't always have to paint what's there. You have to paint what will make it work. As long as the viewer believes it and it's telling the story, you paint what works. Now this is coming out nice, except I don't think it's quite big enough. Now what I love so much about this is that there's a big space missing here. Then there's a petal that goes, and this is all drawing. The only reason I can do this, and I hope when I step back that I did do it, if you learn to draw, it'll free you up. One of my favorite quotes is, through knowledge comes freedom. It's a great quote, and I don't know who said it, but what it means is once you have, like if you're a musician, and actually that came from when I studied jazz. I used to go to jazz camps and I still do play the piano. But anyway, it was in pertaining to music and to jazz, and it was saying once you know your scales and your chords and you have all this knowledge, then you're so free to just improvise. And I feel like it's the same with painting, and that's what drawing is. When you can draw and you learn your colors, that's so valuable about the color charts, is that you know your colors. You know how when you're a new painter and you mix something on your palette and you don't know how you got it, so you don't want to clean your palette ever, ever, because you don't know if you'll ever be able to get that color again. Well, that will all go away. That will all go away once you do color charts and really learn your colors. I'm looking for a nice soft, see, I can really only pretty much work in soft brushes right now. I'm going to cut back into this. This is a beautiful dark here. This is a beautiful dark. See, I can do the drawing, but until I have the contrast, you can't see it. It's the values that are making you be able to see it. Now, I'm taking a lot of care with this one because it's one of my important ones. And this is what I love so much about this one. My God, look at that line like that. I love that. It's not quite right yet. My shadow colors, by the way, have been a mixture of the transparent greenish yellow and some of this yellow that I've been using, and a little bit of orange. You know, it's interesting because when I teach a workshop, you know, we go over all the colors, but when people are watching me do a demo, this is what's such a good thing about DVDs, is that you can see what I'm doing. Really, like everybody's sitting and watching me with a demo when I do a demo, but they really can't see how I'm mixing it because they're not close enough. They're not standing right here, which I don't really like people to do. I just noticed, even though I'm standing at a little bit of an angle, I noticed that there's a little drawing issue here. This isn't quite right here. It kind of needs to be over there. That's better. Oh, that looks nice. Oh, thank you. No, I knew exactly that it was going to come out that perfect. Let's see. A little bit darker. Okay, now stems. Love stems and leaves. Really need to know where it's coming from, and that's not where it was coming from. See, this stem, the top of a marigold stem, is big, and then it goes down. So I'm not going to paint a lot of it. I'll paint maybe up to it, because now I lost my edge there. But I want to remember, and I got a little dirty there. I'm really sensitive and fanatical about certain things. Put that back. Okay. Oh, I'm happy with that. So I got the stem a little bit. Not quite enough, but I know where it's going. I'll play with that later. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. Now that one I painted, I might be actually finished with that one. Almost. One more tiny little thing. One little thing. That might be finished now. Oh, I'm exhausted. Okay. From there, I'm going to put this in, but I'm just going to put it in as color and value, basically. Because I'm too tired now. That just wore me out, that 6 minutes worth of work. So I'm going to put this in just like this. It might go on top of it with a little more yellow. Just sort of play around. This is, you know, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about it being anything because I can always fix it later. It's a little dirty. I don't like that. That's a little better. And maybe it needs to be, whoops, I just got the tiniest bit of Viridian on my brush. And I'm cleaning my brush. I'm just telling you, you know, and I always say this to everybody. I have so many artist friends who they're phenomenal painters, and their palette is so disgusting I couldn't go near it, quite frankly, or their brushes or everything else, completely contradicting everything I'm saying right now. Their paintings are magnificent, and it must be some kind of magic because I don't know how they do it. But for me, I can't do that. It has to be clean, 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 clean. So I'm just painting this now. This is the fun part. After I exhaust myself for the 6 minutes I spent on that flower, then I can have really fun here and just paint tiny little shapes of color, but not just any old place. I'm kind of paying attention to what I'm doing. There's some yellows going that. See, I can go from here to from the clean. I can go right into that dark brown, but now my brush is has brown in it, so I have to clean it. So basically, in here, I'll kind of pay attention to what's going on in here, but you almost can't see what's going on here except that there's. I can play with this later and turn it into flowers. Let me put it that way. Right now, it's a ball. Ooh, yuck! The one thing I am looking at is the shape of it. It's a ball. Actually, this might be a good time to talk about flowers like lilacs and hydrangea and those sort of flowers. When you paint those kind of flowers, they're not, you know, a lilac is not a cone, and a hydrangea is not a ball, and a geranium is not a ball. All of those sorts of flowers are made up of little tiny flowers, and they each have a little tiny stem, otherwise they wouldn't be held together. So if you think of it that way, and you think about the form and keeping it irregular, that's the way to realistically paint those kinds of flowers. This is way darker in here. Way darker. And this shape, I don't know what I'm thinking. This looks like a starfish. So that's not so good. That spot I like a lot. It's going to be broken up into two flowers, like one here and one sort of hiding the back. Actually, it's a good example of what's there. I can't even tell what's there. It's you know, one's on top of another. So I would have to play with that, and I'll figure that out. But I don't want to do it right now because right now I want to get this whole block in finished. So what I can do though is bring some dark down into it and cut a little bit of it away. Too much transparent oxide red. That's good enough.
Hey, would you like to win a beautiful painting worth almost $3,000? We've got a beautiful Joe McGurl plein air study that he's done of the sunset in Maine. It's gorgeous. If you want to have an opportunity to win it, go to paintinggiveaway.com. giveaway.com. Just put in your email. That's all you've got to do, and you only need to enter once. We'll be giving away the prize at the end of May. Go to paintinggiveaway.com.
There's just something about a beautiful garden that captivates the eye. Somehow they call out to something deep inside us. Throughout history, artists have set out to capture the beauty, radiance, and grace of the garden. Monet's water lilies, Van Gogh's sunflowers, Georgia O'Keeffe's red poppy. Now you can learn how to paint your own masterpiece garden composition with the step-by-step guidance of the critically renowned artist Kathy Anderson in the all-new Bringing the Garden Indoors video. Kathy sets up a gorgeous scene from the flowers she picks up at the local nursery or her garden, and then shows you exactly how to paint them in stunning detail so they come alive on canvas. You'll also discover the technique to build a sense of movement in your paintings, the common mistake most new painters make with their palettes. How experienced and novice painters treat mistakes differently, and the one simple thing you can do to make dramatic improvements in your technique right now, and much, much more.
This is a different leaf than this leaf. Now, I'm not painting all of them. These are different leaves, and that's what it's all such beautiful variety. But it's because I'm keeping the values pretty close together that it's not looking so mixed up and jumbled.
Whether you're a complete beginner or an experienced painter, this exclusive training will help you take your painting skills to the next level. Bringing the Garden Indoors with Kathy Anderson is now available on digital video and DVD from Lily Doll Art Instruction Videos.
That was Bringing the Garden Indoors with Kathy Anderson, the great floral painter. She is a lot of fun, and what a great painter. Let's get to know her a little bit. Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur magazine and Plein Air magazine. Today we're here with one of the preeminent floral painters in the world, Kathy Anderson. Kathy, let's get started. Tell me a little bit about your childhood as an artist.
I was not nurtured as an artist as a child, but I always remember being a very introverted child where I would play with little things in the dirt, and I would make little things out of whatever, and of course I remember drawing, but all of us that paint remember drawing as a child, I think. But I did not grow up in an artistic family, but I grew up in a really musical family where I was surrounded. My father was a musician as a hobby, and I was surrounded by a lot of activity in a creative way, but not in art. And I can remember all through elementary school doing nothing but playing with little toys in my desk, and I didn't have a lot of friends. And going into middle school and then into high school was when I actually first started painting. And when it was time for me to graduate from high school, I hadn't even applied to college, and I didn't even know what I was going to do with my life at that time. This was a long time ago. So I remember saying, well, I'm good at art, so I guess I'll go to art school. And I actually went to SUNY Farmingdale and studied advertising art, and was terrible at it. I didn't like it at all. Airbrushing staplers, and one little spit out of your mouth, and that's the end of that project. Where the stapler is, you throw that one away. And so I hated it, and I didn't even finish. I never went into the advertising field at all. But at that point I went on, and art was always in my life. I always did crafty kinds of things, and when I was married and I had my two children, I have two boys, I was working in watercolors at the time. I used to paint animals for the most part, and I started doing outdoor shows a little bit, and I got into a couple of small galleries, but it was nothing totally full time because I did have my children, and from there, I guess I went to, when my oldest son was in high school, I started painting the backdrops of, he went into the theater department, and I started painting the backdrops. The first backdrop I did from little watercolors was a 20 by 40 foot backdrop for West Side Story, which I didn't do by myself, of course, but this monstrous thing. I've always been the kind of person that, you know, it doesn't matter if I don't know how to do it. If somebody asks me to do it, I just say, okay, I can do that, and then I just figure it out how to do it. So I started painting the backdrops for the sets, and from there I started a mural business because I was at an outdoor show and two women asked me if I could paint giant murals in their store that they were opening, and of course once again I said sure. So I had a mural business, and I had that business for probably about 7 years. I studied in England, in Cornwall, with Janet Shearer, who's a really prominent mural artist in England, and I was in that business for about 7 years, and at that time I was working in oils. I guess I started working in oils before the mural business, and then all of a sudden I did an outdoor show one time, and when I went to pick up my paintings, the women that were at the show said to me, "You're not going to believe who bought one of your paintings," and it was Richard Schmidt. And that's how I met Richard Schmidt, and I'm so honored that he did that, and it began the next entire phase of my life, which has been just a remarkable journey thanks to him.
So certainly you had some early influences in art. What were they?
So, well, I guess while I was still working in watercolors, the first course I ever took was with Frank Federico, who's a very prominent Connecticut artist. And I can remember the very first time I was in a class with him, and Frank set up this still life with plastic lilacs that were covered with dust, and that was our still life. And I was a brand new artist, and I said, I can't paint that. Actually, what this segues into is what my philosophy and which I believe in totally is that you have to paint what you love. And even then, before I knew practically anything, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I can't paint that. And he was like, of course you can paint that. An artist can transform their subject and can paint. It's about the paint. And for me, it was never that. It was always like, oh my God, how can I paint those lilacs with dust on them and they're plastic? So anyway, but Frank was a wonderful teacher, actually, and I did learn a lot from him. And from him, I guess, I studied with a few local Connecticut artists that were, Kirill Duran, Charles Ray. But from there, I think I pretty much went right into, that's when I was involved with the theater at the school, and then I went into meeting Richard. So those would be my early influences.
We all have a painting or two that spoke to us at a younger age. What was it, what piece of art inspired you as an artist?
It was before I was really daffodils and all yellow. I just remembered it was all yellow. It was daffodils and pansies or whatever it was. It was just this gigantic, just at some show somewhere by no one I had ever heard of or anything. And I just remember saying, oh my God, how can anyone do that with paint? It's just so beautiful. And because I've always been drawn to flowers in the garden. I am a gardener. My mother was an avid gardener. So that's the piece of art that I remember thinking, wow, if I could ever paint something like that. And of course, I've done a million paintings like that since. Maybe not even thinking about that one, but I have done a million paintings like that since of yellow, it's really basically. But as far as in museums, I could never pinpoint. There's so many million paintings that I love so much.
Tell me about the steps in your career path.
When I started painting with Richard, after I met him and introduced myself and thanked him so much for buying my painting, and I said, he said he painted with this group in Vermont, and they had just started. This was the Putney Painters. And I said, would it be all right if I came up and painted with you? And he goes, please, come up and join us. And I thought it was a workshop, but it wasn't, because Richard doesn't really teach at that point in his life. He used to, of course. But so I went up there, and that's when I found out, I met all these unbelievable painters. And then, of course, I realized even more how much I didn't know, which I already knew how much I didn't know, but it was like the learning that started from that point was just, that was the biggest pivotal point in my life, I have to say. Career paths, if that's the question, I think the mural business is one thing that changed my life. Meeting Richard was, of course, the biggest. And then doing my first plein air show, probably about 10 years ago, was another thing that completely changed my life, because I had never entered one of the plein air competitions before. And when I went out to Telluride, I got into the Telluride show, and oh my God, that transformed me so much as an artist, to paint under those conditions where you have to go out and get something as quickly as you can, and get something really good, and focus on just what's important to make a beautiful painting in a short amount of time, and then sell them. But just for me, I paint from life, I would say 90% of the time, as much as I possibly can. But for me, to go out there to put my gear on my back and hike up, a mountain, and not that I hiked very far, let me tell you. But it's like I feel almost like I'm really earning this painting, and the energy of being out there with the elements and seeing everything and trying to focus in on something that you're so excited about. And for me, when I go out west, for example, I'm not a mountain painter. I'm more of an intimate subject painter. I think I'm probably gone beyond that question, but I'm not sure if it makes any difference. But
so how did you learn to paint?
I always say, before I met Richard, I did some nice work. I did nice work, but I fought to get there. It was such a struggle. One of my favorite quotes is, "Through knowledge comes freedom." Don't know who said it, but it doesn't matter. And painting how did I learn? I don't know. I think there is innate ability in some people, but I absolutely believe that anyone can be taught to draw. It's just a logical skill that you can be taught. Can everyone draw like Richard or like, Leonardo da Vinci? Maybe not. But anyone can learn the skill of drawing and painting. And I struggled and got to a beautiful painting often, although of course if I look back at those now I probably wouldn't think they were so beautiful anymore. But anyone can, I would get to a beautiful painting, but I never knew how I was getting there, and it was agony and such a struggle. And I'm certainly not saying that I'm not going through agony right now, because I'm going through agony right now all the time, but the knowledge that I have now has made it so joyful. One of my favorite quotes that Richard says, I know I quote Richard a lot, I hope but he said, it's up to us to choose whether we want the aimless struggle or the satisfaction of oh my God, I forgot the quote. Do we want the aimless struggle or the joy of problem solving? That's what it is. You can choose. It's up to you to choose the joy of problem solving or to take the path of the aimless struggle. And the joy of problem solving, I'm starting to get the joy, but when you have the knowledge and the skill, and especially when you learn to draw, which is the most important thing in the world for anything, it just allows you to, it gives you the freedom to grow more as an artist.
What is it that takes an artist from being average to being excellent?
I see this in so many people all the time, and it has to start with the passion. That they have to do it. They want it so badly. And I know so many artists that I've seen go from being totally unskilled to being really accomplished. And a lot of them are in our Putney painters. And you can just see they want it so badly, and they have that passion, and then they have that discipline, and they put the hours in, and they work and work and work. Studying with somebody, I mean, I am so blessed that I'm studying with Richard. I'm also very blessed that I have a very close friendship with Everett Raymond Kinsler. I never studied with Everett, but we were very good friends, and just listening, I have so much knowledge that I've gotten from him just listening to him talking about the great illustrators that he just reveres, and Sargent, and I have all this knowledge that pours into me all the time, and you have to do the work. You just have to do the work.
What do artists need to be able to do to grow as an artist?
First of all, you have to learn to draw. That's absolutely, absolutely the most important. And I've been teaching for probably about 3 or 4 years. I've been teaching. I really only came to teaching late, I guess. And so many times I hear a student say, well, I know how to draw, and well, drawing isn't a problem for me, and it usually is. And if everything falls apart if you don't have the drawing skills. So that's the first thing, is to learn to draw. I think it's very important to study with somebody whose work you love. But I don't believe in going to like workshop after workshop after workshop, because I think I think it's really good to study with somebody, maybe once or twice or 3 times, and then just work on what you learn from that one person for however long it takes to absorb that, and maybe then go on. Sometimes if you go to one instructor after another, so many different people, there's no rules. I don't think there's any rules in art. So you're going to get this from this person, this from that person, and all you do is make your head spin. I don't think you get anywhere from that.
Well, you have to have the fundamentals first, right?
Absolutely. I think that if you take somebody who becomes an abstract painter, but they never learn their fundamentals, they never learn to draw, then I can't. Then you don't have design. You don't have a design sense, I don't think. Well, I guess maybe some people do. I don't want to say never. I won't say that. But that's where there's so much. Well, with music, for example, I am a musician, and I studied jazz for 7. I went to jazz camp for 7 years, and I learned all these scales, and I learned all these chords, but once they're in I'm a slow learner, and I late in life played the piano my whole life, but it came to me late in life to learn this music theory, and I can say that by the time finally some of it is sinking into my head, and it's the same thing again. Through knowledge comes freedom. If you want to improvise in jazz, if you don't have all that knowledge in your head, if you're Errol Garner, that's fine. But if you don't have some of the fundamental knowledge in your head, it's how do you sound? How do you make an excellent sound and a beautiful sound if you can't draw? If you don't know, if you don't know what edges are, you don't know what temperature is, you don't know the fundamentals of what makes a beautiful painting. What makes a painting beautiful? What do you respond to? What do you love so much when you look at a painting?
Your paintings tend to be loose and abstract, yet they have a lot of energy. How do you get to that point?
Painting from life, being madly, passionately in love with what I'm about to paint, and that is so important. I go outside and I have a painting here of roses and an immense rose garden. You go out there and you look at this rose garden and you think, or this huge hedge of roses, and you think, how do you make sense out of this? And I'm learning. So it's so exciting that I've learned how to create a beautiful path and design and movement out of something that looks like chaos, just from my design that I've learned, the design skills that I've learned. But I don't, it takes me a long time when I go out painting outside to find my subject. I'll walk around, or even if I know I'm going to paint this hedge of roses, it'll take me a long time to figure out which ones am I going to paint, and until something says to me, oh my God, that's it. I have to have that moment where it's like I know this is it. Same thing when I'm setting up a still life in my studio. If you came to the Putney Painters, you'd laugh at all of us setting up still lifes. Everybody's in their own little space, setting up a still life and moving a branch 2 inches, moving a leaf an inch, moving and sitting back and looking. And this is what we've learned so much from Richard, really, and Nancy, of course, my dear friend Nancy, his wife. You have to be so excited about what you're going to paint that you just start shaking. You can't wait to start painting, that you're so excited.
Kathy, what is it that grabs your eye and tells you that's it?
Instead of flowers, I'll talk about like when I go out west and I'm painting like in the landscape, because as I said, I know I love to paint aspen trees. I know I'm still looking for a flower here and there. I love to paint waterfalls. So I'll go and I'll look at a waterfall, for example. So I see if I could point to a painting, it would be easy. But if I'll go to, for example, in Hidden Falls out by Jenny Lake in Wyoming. I'll go to the waterfall and I'm walking up and down the waterfall and up and down the rocks and looking and waiting until I see that beautiful white running water against the darkest rock, or some kind of a pattern. I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for value contrast. I'm looking for the movement. For me, is the most important part. That's something that I think I strive for in all my paintings, is to create a movement so that you really feel like you're out there and everything's moving and you can see what I'm feeling and what I'm so excited about. It comes back to, for me, I have to paint what I'm really, really excited about, and I get excited about a lot of stuff. So flowers, water, grass, animals, whatever. But
Kathy, if you could choose any artist from history who's not living, who would that be and what would you ask him?
Everybody would say, because of course we all love Sargent and Zorn and Sorolla and but I would pick a wildlife artist, and actually the one I would probably pick, and he only died a few years ago and I never met him, is Bob Coons, who painted wildlife that I've never been so moved by. I love animals. It's a huge passion for me. And the way he paints animals, I saw he had a whole huge retrospective show at the Wildlife Museum in Jackson a couple of years ago that I saw, and I went back to see it like 3 times. And oh God, his animals are just, they're so sensitive, and they're so beautiful the way he paints them, and they're ready to leap, or they're just sleeping, or they're just, I would love to talk to him about how he, I'm sure I know, I've read about how he captures them because he studied them his whole life, painted from life his whole life. But just the way he paints them is just so beautiful to me. I think that's who I would like to talk to. And he only died a couple of years ago, and I know one of my closest friends, Stephanie Birdsall, knew him, and Carol Swinney, she knew him, so I probably could have met him, a few years ago. But
do you have a favorite living artist?
Richard Schmidt, Nancy Guzik, Everett Raymond Kinsler, Dennis Sheehan, Jeremy Lipking, Sue Lyon, Michelle Dunaway, Sherry McGraw, all my friends. I better stop because I'm going to leave somebody out. Every one of them paints paintings that just move you when you look at them. You look at them and you respond on a level that's just beyond. Nancy Guzik, she's just incomparable.
Kathy, what is it you haven't done? Something you really aspire to?
Just just to keep growing. Every time I finish a painting, I think, oh my God, next time I'm going to do this. Next time I can't wait to start the next one, to know that I'm going to, I'm going to the Tetons this summer I'm one of the Rocky Mountain plein air painters, and I can't wait to go and see if I can be better this summer. If I can find my focal point faster and get a good painting. I don't do a lot of plein air shows like all my friends out west. I have so many wonderful friends out there, and they paint and they do show after show, and they're such wonderful painters, all of them. They get it the first time, they get it fast, and I'm not like that. I usually have to go back to my subject a couple of times. But so this summer I think, well, this time I'm going to get it the first time, but if not this summer, next summer.
So is there an ultimate painting you want to do?
I really want to start painting animals again a lot, basically. I started off painting animals, birds and deer and my local, the local animals. And I have started, actually. I have a lot of birds in my paintings now, and I've painted, I want to paint more animals. I guess that's all.
What advice do you have for someone who is just starting out, a young artist or someone who's just started painting?
Try to find somebody really good to study with. And of course, go to museums, go to galleries, and I guess, let me backtrack. Be true to yourself is the first thing. Just be really true to yourself. It's really important if you go into a gallery or a museum and look at paintings and try to really realize what makes you respond to a painting. Why do I love this so much? What is it about it? Is it the subject? Is it the values? Is it the color? And whatever that is, that's probably what you should try to translate into your own work. Am I somebody who really likes to work on values, to see value contrasts? For me, I love value patterns, value contrasts, and color, of course. But if you recognize what you love in other work, whether it's old masters or contemporary people, that's probably what you would like to paint, and then just be totally true to yourself, and then get the fundamentals down. And is it Woody Allen that said, and show up? Show up. It's really important to get to know people, to go to openings, to be, meet other artists. Networking it's a lot of fun. If it doesn't come easy to you and you're not comfortable with it, then it's probably not a good idea. But for me, it's fun. But you've got to put the hours in. You've got to do the work, and there's no shortcuts. It takes a long time. I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I'm certainly not satisfied. Once you're satisfied, you're finished. That's it. If you think you're there, you'll never be there. That's what I think.
What do you see in your work?
What do I see? Oh my gosh. I see how much I love these flowers. I see how much I was madly in love with that blue bowl when I painted it, and those deer that were down in my woods that I painted from the back. I saw how excited I was when I saw those deer. That goat, I was in that goat pen I was in Guatemala 2 weeks ago with that goat. I guess just my love of everything that I paint.
What are you passionate about?
I guess I'm very lucky that I have a lot of things that I'm very passionate about, and our family, my one son lives in Guatemala, and he's a very different person, but he's an amazing creative person. And my younger son is a builder who built my incredible studio, and he's an amazing artist himself. And my husband, who when he retired, makes all my frames for me. He was a master woodworker, and now he makes all my frames, does gold leafing. So our whole family has been immersed in a creative lifestyle, I guess, and I'm just very lucky to be surrounded by, I have a lot of energy for things that I love, and I love a lot of things, and I think I'm very lucky that I love so many things that I get excited about, that It's a very lucky way to be, that there's always something out there that I can't wait to do or see or paint.
Thank you, Kathy. This has really been great. That was Bringing the Garden Indoors with Kathy Anderson. You can learn more about her video at lilyartvideo.com. Thanks for watching today, and get started painting your flowers. I know you're inspired.
There's just something about a beautiful garden that captivates the eye. Somehow they call out to something deep inside us. Throughout history, artists have set out to capture the beauty, radiance, and grace of the garden. Monet's water lilies, Van Gogh's sunflowers, Georgia O'Keeffe's red poppy. Now you can learn how to paint your own masterpiece garden composition with the step-by-step guidance of the critically renowned artist Kathy Anderson in the all-new Bringing the Garden Indoors video. Kathy sets up a gorgeous scene from the flowers she picks up at the local nursery or her garden, and then shows you exactly how to paint them in stunning detail so they come alive on canvas. You'll also discover the technique to build a sense of movement in your paintings, the common mistake most new painters make with their palettes. How experienced and novice painters treat mistakes differently, and the one simple thing you can do to make dramatic improvements in your technique right now, and much, much more.
This is a different leaf than this leaf. Now, I'm not painting all of them. These are different leaves, and that's what, it's all such beautiful variety. But it's because I'm keeping the values pretty close together that it's not looking so mixed up and jumbled.
Whether you're a complete beginner or an experienced painter, this exclusive training will help you take your painting skills to the next level. Bringing the Garden Indoors with Kathy Anderson is now available on digital video and DVD from Lily Doll Art Instruction Videos.